Welcome to the Better Act Now series of online training courses. My name is Elene Marsden and this is the Customise Fields and Layouts course. The pace of this training is fast, so we recommend you have your act open at the same time as you watch this video. You can pause it at any time and try things out for yourself. And if you want to access the table of contents, click the icon next to the speaker button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. On this course, we'll look at customizing your database, which means adding new fields and changing layouts. It's a two-step process where first of all we'll define the fields that we want, we'll look at all the different field types, we'll check field properties, and then we'll come on to customize the layouts. I'll show you how to add, move and remove fields, how to create drop-down lists, add your business logos, include text boxes, and insert new tabs for extra fields. We'll work with tab stops, and finally we'll take a look at the new calculated fields in ACT. We're going to create some new fields and modify and customize layouts for the contact window. But the skills you learn will apply equally to opportunities, companies and group layouts too. When you buy ACT, you get over 75 predefined fields, and some of these fields you may be interested in renaming. There's two steps to this. First of all, I'm going to click on this alternate phone field because I'd like to rename that and call it direct dial. So click in the field, come up to Tools, Define Fields. The field that I was on has been highlighted, so I'll come over to Edit Field, and then in the field name box type the new name, Direct Dial, and click Finish. The database will now be updated to show this new name. And when I right-click over the field, you can see the field is now called Direct Dial. But the label hasn't been changed. We need to modify the layout to do that second step. To modify your layout, you can either come across to Modify Layout under Related Tasks, or back to Tools, Design Layouts, select Contact. Now we're in the report Designer view. And the very first thing I'd recommend you do is that you take a copy of this original layout. File, Save As, and we'll come in here and type Test and Save. And you can see in the top line we're working on the test copy, so if we ever needed to revert back to the other one, we could. So you can see that the direct dial field has been updated, but the label hasn't. So I'm just going to double click in this label, highlight and type in there the name I want for this field. Click the Save button, close out of the designer to go back to the contact window. If your test layout isn't displayed, come up to the layout selector and choose it from there. If you still can't see your layout in the list, close ACT and open it up again. Now, one word of advice, it's really quite important that your fields match your labels. So in order to check that, I would just go through each of the fields in your database, right click over them and make sure that the name, the label, matches the field. And you can do that in turn. It just means that it's so much easier when it comes to looking up information if the label matches the field. Now let's take a look at adding some brand new fields to this database. But first of all, take a look at the User Fields tab, where there are 10 blank fields that you can use. If you use one of these fields, you do have a restriction on the different kinds of data types available. Whereas if you create a brand new field, you can choose from any of the data types available. So to create a field, we'll come up to Tools, define fields, create a field, and the field I'm going to create is an OK to mail field. And let's look at all the different data types. So you've got an annual event field, calculated field, which we'll look at later, character, currency, date. We've got an email field, memo field for more information. You have got a picture field or a URL field, or the one that we want is a yes/no field. And you can put a tick in here to generate history every time the field is changed or updated. You can also put a tick in here to make it a primary field so that this information is copied when duplicating the record. Let's click Next, and you can set a default if you want. It's currently set to no, which is fine. And then Next. We don't do anything at this field triggers page, and click Finish to add that field to your database. This time we'll add a contract date. So I'm going to select Create New Field, and in the field name I'll type in their contract date, and in the field data type I'll select Date and click Next and Finish. And that contract date is now added to the database. So you keep building up all the fields you require, and then you go to the layout view to add the fields onto the layout. Whenever you close out of the Define Fields dialog box, you get a helpful message asking if you'd like to go to modify your layout now. I'm going to say no because I want to show you how to delete fields from your database. But I would definitely take a backup of the database first before removing any fields. So to delete fields, come to Tools, Define Fields. I've got a few test fields here that I created earlier. Select Test 1 and Delete Field. You're always asked if you're sure because all associated data will be lost. I'll say yes. Now, if you do want to add fields to opportunities or companies, just come to the drop down here and select companies or groups or opportunities, and you can add new fields to that area. But I'm going to stick with contacts right now, and I want to find the hobbies field and make some changes to that. With character field types, you can create drop-down lists. So let's add one. Come over to Manage Drop-down Lists, create a drop-down list, give your list a name. I'm going to call it Hobbies. Yes, users can edit items, and yes, we can automatically add new items to the list. Click Next and add. Let's type in here some hobbies and add and finish. Now what we need to do is to go home to the hobbies field. There it is. We need to edit that field because we need to pull out the drop down list that we've just created. So we'll put a tick in here, use drop down list, and go and find the one that we've just created, hobbies, and click Finish. There's a couple of other settings you need to be aware of when you're working with drop-down lists. So let's go back to that hobbies field and edit it. And now we're going to click the Next button. And here you can choose whether you want to limit the list. Well, this is a growing list, so I certainly don't want to tick in that one. Now here, allow multi-select. I do want to tick here because people may have more than one hobby. And that's the same idea as used in the ID status field. Somebody could be a supplier and a customer. So let's click Next. And here you can set a default if you require. You can format the field. You can also change the field length so that if you know you're never going to need any more than 30 characters in a field, you can change this. But be very careful because if you do reduce the field length of an existing field, you'll lose data that's currently in your database. So let's click Next and Finish. In the Layout Designer, over on the left-hand side, you can see the toolbox, which is currently showing all the different field types you can add: a standard field, a memo, a picture, or a yes/no field. If you click the drawing area of the toolbox, this is where you can add a text box or an image or a shape. We'll come back to the field area in preparation for adding our newly created fields to the layout. Let's start by adding the yes/no field, OK to mail. Select the field type, draw out the checkbox on the layout, choose the field you want, OK to mail, yes we want a label, and click Add. There's the new label and field on the layout. We'll do the same now with the contract date field. That's a standard field type, so I select that, I draw out the box to as large as I want it, then I'm going to choose the contract date field, yes I want a label, and click Add. The two new fields are now on our layout. All we have to do now is to resize them and position them. I'm going to move the OK to mail field to the position where the phone extension is right now. So I'll click the phone extension label, select it and hit delete, and do the same with the actual field itself. Now I'm going to come onto the OK to mail label, hold the Shift button down so I can select the field at the same time, and with the mouse I'll just move the field and its label to the new position. Now let's work on the contract date field. We'll select the label and the field and use the Shift button to select the two together, and I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to nudge the pair up to a different position, one click at a time. Now all the fields in this database layout have got borders around them, so I'm going to add a border to this contract date field. I'll select it, I'll come up to the icon on the toolbar, the border style, and I'll click 3D border, and there you can see a border has now been added. Now if you want to make the label stand out, you can select it, you can make it bold. Now if making it bold means it's not all on the same line, you can use one of the square handles and just make this label a bit wider so that you can see everything on one line. It can be quite tricky to get all your fields to be the same size and for them all to be aligned, but this next technique will help to make sure there's consistency in the fields on your layout. So I'm going to click the contract date field, I'll hold the Shift button down and select website, because the size of that website field is the one I want the contract date to match. So I'll come up to Format, make same size on both the width and the height, so I'll select the both option, and there you can see the contract date field size is now exactly the same as the website field. Now I'm going to align them all up to the left. With them both still selected, I'll come back to Format and align to the left. And there you can see that contract date field is aligned up to the website field because that's the last one I selected. So that's the one that all the fields match to. Let's show you one more example of this. I'm going to click the city field, hold the Shift button down, address 2, address 1, and then finally contract date. Now I'm going to get all of those address fields to match the contract date alignment. Come to Format, Align to the left, and all of those address fields match the contract alignment field. Now let's add a picture to our layout. We've already got the CH Tech 1 logo. I'm going to add another image. Make sure the drawing area of the toolbox is selected. Click Image, and in this space over here I'm going to draw out a box to add the picture. Now just right click over this area and come down to Edit Properties to go and search for a picture. I'm going to use this telephone image and click Open. Now, in order to see the picture, I need to set the picture properties. So to do that, I come up to View, Properties window, or I could use F4 as a shortcut. Now, under the image properties, I need to come under size options and select here the zoom button. And there you can see my picture has been added to my layout. Now let's add a text box to our layout. But first of all, I'm going to get rid of this Properties dialog box. Click the cross at the top or use F4. Come and click on the text box feature and draw out your new text box on your layout. Double click in the text box and type in the new text you require. Now, if you want to make some formatting changes to this text, select it, and once you've selected it, come up and apply some attributes. Make it bold, change the font colour, change the font size, for example. You can also move the text box around and position it, resize it, all those kind of things that we looked at earlier. In the lower half of the layout, you can see all the tabs. Now, it's possible to remove tabs from view. Say you didn't want to show the Documents tab. Select it, right-click over it and remove tab. Now, it's not disappeared from the database completely, it's just hidden. So if you want to bring it back, come to Edit, Tabs, and the hidden ones are over on the left-hand side. Click Documents, the top arrow, and then select it and move it up to the original position. And click Close to go back to your layout. Now, if at any time you want to add a brand new tab, you can right-click and add a tab and type in there the new tab name if you wish, and all the fields, the new fields that you've created, can be positioned on this new tab. Let me show you how to rename a tab. You will need to make sure that the Properties window is visible, and you will need to click somewhere in the New Tab white area in the lower half of the layout. Over on the right, you can see the name of the new tab is currently New Tab 1. I'm going to call it Delivery. Click away, and when I close out of this property window, all the way over on the right hand side, you can see the name of the new tab. Now let's take a look at the tab stops. We'll come up to View, Tab Stops and Show Tab Stops. Now, all of these red numbers show the order in which you can tab through the fields in your database. And that's fine, it works out really well until you start to add new fields and the order is then changed. As you can see, I've got the address name field is showing as 77. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear tab stops and reorder them. So to clear the tab stops, come right the way back to View, Tab Stops and Clear. And now all you have to do is click through each field in turn in the order in which you wish to tab through fields in your contact window. And when you've set them all up, remember to come back to View, Tab Stops, take the tick out of Show Tab Stops. And now we've made quite a few changes to this layout. I'm going to save the changes and go back to the contact window. Now let's take a look at some of the changes that we've made to the contact window. You can see the OK to mail, which is a yes/no field. You can see the phone logo. Over here you can see the contract date, which is in fact a date field. And in the lower half of the window, under the Personal Info tab, you can see the new Hobbies field, which has actually got a drop-down list. You can always add new hobbies by selecting Edit List Values and adding, and click OK. And as you can see with this field, it's multi-select. so that you can have more than one hobby showing. And over on the tabs, you can see the new tab we created called Delivery, which is empty right now but ready for new fields to be added. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at some of the calculated fields. So calculated fields enable you to carry out very simple calculations on a single record, but it does work at the company level, group and opportunity, as well as the contact levels. And it can work with currency fields, date fields and number fields. A couple of examples: you might want to know how old a contact is in terms of years. You might want to know how many months before a contract is due for renewal. Or it may be that you want to know the commission based on a particular product. So there's lots of things that you can do with these calculated fields, and what happens is the calculation is updated on saving the record. But if you do need to make changes to the calculated field, for example the formula, you will have to delete it and recreate it because you can't edit the calculations. So let's take a look at the contract date, and what we'll do there, we'll create a brand new calculated field based on the contract date. So I'm interested in how long my contact has been a customer, so I'm going to create a field that calculates the number of years. So I'm going to come up to Tools, Define Fields, create a new field, call it How Many Years, and the field data type is a calculated one. We'll click Next, and it's going to be a date calculation, and it's going to be based on the contract date. Select that, and I'm interested in years since the first contract. Click Finish, and then the next thing I'm going to be prompted to do is to add this new field to the layout. So I'll say yes to that, and in the designer view I'm going to add this new field. Click Field, draw it out, and it's going to be called How Many Years. Find the field, include a label and add. Just make this a little bit smaller, and save and close out of the designer. And what we can do here is we can change the contract date to 1995, and the action of saving the record will update the number of years set to 18 years, a very loyal customer. In the next example, we'll add a calculated field that will work out somebody's salary from the rate and the hours worked. So we're going to come up to Tools, Define Fields, create a new field. We'll call it Salary. Remember to choose Calculated and Next. And this time it's going to be a numeric calculated field type. So we'll write the formula first of all. The field I want is the hours worked. Double click that. Then we'll come across to the function, which is product. Double click to bring that into the formula bar. And we need to times hours by rate. So double click that. And then we want to display the calculated field as currency. When we're happy with that, click Finish. That field is now added to the database. When we close out of that, we'll go to the Layout Designer, and we will add that calculated field to the layout. Select Field and come over to make sure that the tab Personal Info is displayed. Hold the left mouse button down to draw out the salary field. Go and find it from the list and add and save and close out of the designer, and then we'll have a look at how this works. So let's say Alison's salary is increased to 25, and it doesn't update until you actually save the record. So I'm going to use Control S to update the calculated field. I hope you've been able to see all the ways you can modify your database. get new fields added, customize the layouts, spend some time planning your database at the beginning before you import records into ACT, and it will pay dividends. And remember, all the skills that you've learnt customizing the contact layout work equally well with opportunities and companies. So thanks ever so much for listening. Till next time.